He mocked her for being poor, but regretted it when she returned as the wife of a powerful CEO. Hello, let's start another beautiful story. Welcome to my channel. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let's go. See, autumn breeze swept through the bustling streets of downtown Boston, carrying with it the scent of coffee and the rustle of fallen leaves. Olivia Parker clutched her leather portfolio closer to her chest as she made her way through the revolving doors of Sterling and Reed Corporation, her heart racing with a familiar mix of determination and anxiety. 6 months into her first corporate job, and still, every morning felt like her first day. The elevator dinged open on the 32nd floor, revealing the sleek, modern offices where dreams either soared or shattered. For Olivia, it had been a bit of both. Fresh out of college with a business degree earned through countless sleepless nights of studying and working part-time jobs, she had landed what seemed like her golden ticket, a junior analyst position at one of Boston's most prestigious firms. Well, if it isn't our charity case, the smooth, cutting voice of Ryan Collins sliced through her morning reverie. He leaned against the break room doorway, designer suit impeccable, coffee cup in hand, and that familiar smirk playing on his lips. Tell me, Parker, did you take the bus again today, or did you finally save up enough from your food stamps for a taxi? Olivia's fingers tightened around her portfolio, but she kept her chin high, her voice steady. Good morning, Ryan. She moved to step past him, but he shifted, blocking her path. You know, he continued, voice dripping with false concern, I've been wondering how you even got this job. Sterling and Reed has standards, after all. Was it a diversity hire, or did someone feel particularly charitable that day? The words stung, as they always did, but Olivia had learned to wear her armor well. I earned my place here, just like everyone else, she replied, meeting his gaze directly. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do. Ryan's laugh echoed through the corridor. Earned? Please. Look around you, Parker. This isn't some community college scholarship program. This is the real world, where connections and class actually matter. And you? His eyes raked over her modest blazer and sensible shoes. You're just playing dress-up. She pushed past him, her heart hammering against her ribs. But her steps remained steady. As she settled at her desk, Olivia pulled up the quarterly report she'd spent the weekend perfecting. The numbers swam before her eyes, but she blinked away the threat of tears. She hadn't worked this hard, hadn't fought her way through years of doubt and difficulty to let someone like Ryan Collins break her spirit. The morning crawled by, punctuated by the usual mix of meaningful work and subtle jabs. During the team meeting, Ryan had accidentally spilled coffee on her presentation notes. At lunch, she overheard him regaling their colleagues with thinly veiled jokes about her background, but it was the afternoon email that made her blood run cold. Subject: Quarterly Analysis Review, from Maxwell Sterling to Olivia Parker, CC, Human Resources. Ms. Parker, serious discrepancies have been found in your latest quarterly analysis report. This level of negligence is unacceptable at Sterling and Reed. Please report to HR immediately to discuss the termination of your employment. Regards, Maxwell Sterling, CEO, Sterling and Reed Corporation. The world tilted on its axis. Olivia's hands trembled as she opened her report, scanning the numbers. She knew by heart. There, in the final projections, numbers had been altered. Subtle changes that painted a picture of incompetence and carelessness. Changes she hadn't made. Through the glass walls of her cubicle, she caught Ryan's reflection, watching her. With that same smirk, his phone raised slightly. He was recording her reaction, she realized, her stomach churning with a mix of rage and despair. As security escorted her out an hour later, box of belongings in her arms, Olivia caught one last glimpse of Ryan through the lobby windows. He stood with a group of colleagues, all of them watching her walk of shame, and she could read the satisfaction on his face, even from 32 stories below. That night, in her tiny studio apartment, Olivia sat on her worn couch, staring at the city lights beyond her window. Tears finally fell freely, but they weren't just tears of defeat. Something else burned in her chest, a fierce, unwavering determination. "This isn't over," she whispered to the darkness, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I promise you, Ryan Collins, this is just the beginning." She couldn't know then just how prophetic those words would prove to be, or how dramatically the tables would turn. But as she sat there, planning her next move, one thing was certain. Olivia Parker wasn't broken. She was barely getting started. 3 weeks after her humiliating exit from Sterling and Reed, Olivia sat in a small coffee shop in Cambridge, her laptop open to yet another job application. The bitter dregs of her third coffee had long since gone, cold, much like the trail of responses to her resume submissions. The whispers in Boston's tight-knit financial community had done their work well. Ryan had made sure of that. "Mind if I join you?" Olivia looked up to find an elderly gentleman gesturing to the empty chair across from her. The cafe had filled up during her job-hunting trance, leaving few vacant seats. She managed a small smile and nodded, quickly minimizing her rejection emails. The man settled into the chair, setting down an elegant cup of tea and what looked like a well-worn leather journal. His tailored suit spoke of wealth, but his kind eyes and gentle demeanor put her at ease. "Rough morning?" he asked, noting her collection of empty cups. Olivia let out a hollow laugh. "Rough month, actually." She didn't know why she was opening up to a stranger, but something about his grandfatherly presence made it feel safe. "Ever had one of those moments where everything you worked for just disappears?" "As a matter of fact, I have." He extended his hand. "William Blackwood." "Olivia Parker." She shook his hand, noting his firm but warm grip. "Tell me, Olivia Parker, what would you do if failure wasn't an option?" The question caught her off guard. She'd been so focused on survival, on finding any job that would take her, that she hadn't allowed herself to think bigger. I'd start my own consulting firm," she found herself saying. "Help small businesses grow, especially those owned by people who, like me, didn't start with advantages, people who just need someone to believe in them." William's eyes sparkled with interest. "And what's stopping you?" "Reality." Olivia gestured to her laptop. "I have student loans, rent, and now a termination on my record. I can barely get an interview, let alone start a business." "Ah, yes, reality." William pulled his journal closer and opened it. The favorite excuse of countless brilliant minds who never reached their potential. He turned the journal toward her, revealing neat columns of numbers and annotations. "Do you know what these are?" Olivia leaned forward, her analyst's mind automatically processing the data. "These are profit and loss projections for multiple businesses?" Her eyes widened as she caught more details. "These are brilliant. The risk assessment matrices are incredibly thorough, but there's also room for aggressive growth under the right conditions." William smiled, watching her rapidly scan the pages. "The coffee shop we're sitting in, it was my first investment. After I retired from teaching economics, the owner was a former student, brilliant with coffee, terrible with numbers. She just needed someone to believe in her." He pulled out a business card and placed it on the table. "I'm always looking for sharp minds who can see beyond the numbers to the human potential behind them. My firm, Blackwood Ventures, could use someone with your insight." Olivia stared at the card, her heart racing. I don't understand. Why would you help me? You don't even know me. Let's just say I have a nose for potential." He stood, straightening his jacket. And perhaps I'm tired of seeing the financial world dominated by those who mistake cruelty for strength. His eyes twinkled. The interview is Monday at 9 a.m. Bring your ideas for that consulting firm. I'd love to hear them in detail. After William left, Olivia sat in stunned silence, the business card between her fingers, feeling like a key to a door she hadn't known existed. For the first time since her termination, hope flickered in her chest. That evening she walked through her neighborhood with renewed purpose, her mind racing with possibilities. Passing a small boutique, she caught her reflection in the window. Still in her old interview suit, clutching her worn portfolio, she paused, really looking at herself. "Time for a change," she murmured, pulling out her phone. Her fingers hovered over her savings account app for a moment before she made the decision. She'd been saving every penny, terrified of running out, but William's question echoed in her mind. What would you do if failure wasn't an option? The next hour was a blur of decisions she'd been too scared to make. She booked an appointment at a high-end salon for the following morning, found a skilled tailor who could alter her interview suit to perfection, ordered books on investment, strategies and small business development. In her tiny apartment that night, Olivia stood before her mirror, hair pulled back severely as it had been at Sterling and Reed. With deliberate movements, she let it fall free around her shoulders. "My terms this time," she told her reflection. "My way." Her phone buzzed, an email notification. Her heart skipped when she saw the sender, Ryan Collins. Subject line, "Missing you around the office." For a moment her finger hovered over the delete button. Instead, she created a new folder labeled Motivation and moved the email there. Someday, she promised herself, she'd look back on this moment from a very different position. As she prepared for bed, Olivia noticed something had changed in her apartment's atmosphere. The walls that had felt like they were closing in on her, for weeks now, seemed to contain not a prison, but a chrysalis, and she was finally ready to transform. The Blackwood Ventures office occupied the entire top floor of a restored brownstone in Boston's Back Bay. As Olivia stepped out of the elevator Monday morning, she felt the difference immediately. Unlike Sterling and Reed's cold modernism, this space breathed with warm woods, vintage Persian rugs, and walls lined with local artwork. Light streamed through tall windows, catching the fresh highlights in her newly styled hair. "Right on time." William emerged from his office, his smile genuine. "And looking ready for battle, I see." Olivia smoothed her newly tailored navy suit. "An investment in her future," she told herself. "Thank you again for this opportunity, Mr. Blackwood." "William, please." He gestured her toward a conference room where 3 other people waited. "Meet the team that makes the magic happen." The introductions flew by. Christina Chen, Head of Strategic Development, David Rodriguez, Financial Analytics, and Lauren Bedford, Client Relations. Olivia noticed immediately how they carried themselves, confident but without the sharp edges she'd grown accustomed to at Sterling and Reed. "So," Christina began, once they were all seated, "William tells us you have some interesting ideas about community-focused consulting." Olivia took a deep breath, unzipping her portfolio. She'd spent the weekend preparing for this moment, barely sleeping. "Actually, I'd like to show you something I discovered while researching Blackwood Ventures' current portfolio." She pulled out several meticulously prepared charts. "You have 47 small business investments across Boston, with a particular concentration in emerging neighborhoods. The returns are solid, but I noticed a pattern." She pointed to specific data points. "These businesses are thriving not just because of capital injection, but because they're creating micro-communities around them. The coffee shop, where I met William, for instance, has become a hub for local entrepreneurs, leading to organic networking and business growth." The room had gone quiet. Olivia pushed forward, her voice growing stronger. "I propose we formalize this effect. create a network of mentorship and resource sharing among our portfolio businesses. The larger, more established ones can guide the newer ventures, creating a self-sustaining ecosystem of growth. David leaned forward, studying her numbers. The implementation costs would be offset by reduced failure rates and accelerated growth, Olivia finished. I've run the projections. She slid another document across the table. Conservative estimate shows a 23% increase in portfolio stability within the first year. Lauren whistled softly. You did all this over the weekend? I don't sleep much these days, Olivia admitted with a small smile. William, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. And this is why I wanted you here. You see beyond the surface, Olivia. You see connections others miss. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur of questions, suggestions, and increasingly excited discussion. By the end, Olivia's proposal had evolved into a full-fledged initiative, with Christina already drafting implementation timelines. Welcome to the team, William announced as the others filed out. The position is yours if you want it. Olivia felt a lump in her throat. I do, more than anything. Good, he handed her a folder. Because your first client meeting is tomorrow. Small tech startup in Somerville. Brilliant product, shaky financials. Show me what you can do. That evening, as Olivia pored over the client files in her apartment, her phone buzzed. A LinkedIn notification. Ryan Collins had viewed her profile, her new profile, showing her position at Blackwood Ventures. For a moment, anxiety fluttered in her chest. Then she remembered the looks of genuine respect she'd received in that conference room, the way her ideas had been heard and valued. Ryan's opinion suddenly seemed very small. Her laptop chimed with an email from Christina. Drinks tomorrow after the client meeting. The team usually hits up this great little wine bar on Newbury. Time to properly welcome our new secret weapon. Olivia smiled, typing back an enthusiastic yes. As she returned to her work, she noticed her reflection in the window. The woman looking back at her stood straighter, her eyes bright with purpose. The chrysalis was already beginning to crack. A text from William appeared. Don't stay up all night with those files. Trust your instincts. They're better than you know. She added a note to her proposal. Potential partnership with DevHub in Cambridge. Similar client profile, complementary services. The pieces were starting to come together, not just for the client, but for her own transformation. In the quiet of her apartment, surrounded by spreadsheets and possibilities, Olivia finally felt it, the first real stirring of power. Not the kind that came from crushing others, as Ryan had tried to do to her, but the kind that came from creating something meaningful. Watch me, she whispered to the city lights outside her window. Just watch me fly. 6 months into her role at Blackwood Ventures, Olivia stood at the podium of a packed conference room in the Boston Harbor Hotel, commanding the attention of over 200 of the city's top investors and entrepreneurs. Her community business network initiative, now branded as GrowthLink, had exceeded even her optimistic projections. The numbers speak for themselves, she concluded, gesturing to the final slide. 87% of our network participants showed marked growth in their first quarter, with a remarkable 92% retention rate. But the real success isn't in these numbers, it's in the stories. She clicked to a series of photographs showing thriving local businesses. Maria's food truck expanding into a restaurant, Sam's coding bootcamp opening 3 new locations, Devon's sustainable fashion line getting picked up by major retailers. This is what happens when we invest in community, not just capital. The sheer applause was immediate and enthusiastic. As Olivia stepped down from the stage, she caught William's eye. He gave her a subtle nod, pride evident in his expression. She'd come so far from that desperate day in the coffee shop. Impressive presentation. A deep voice behind her made her turn. A tall man in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit stood there, his green eyes sharp with intelligence. "Nathan Bennett," he introduced himself, extending his hand. "I particularly appreciated your emphasis on community impact metrics." Olivia's heart skipped a beat. Everyone in Boston's business world knew Nathan Bennett, the CEO of Bennett Global, known as much for his ethical business practices as for his brilliant acquisitions. "Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I'm Olivia Parker." "Oh, I know who you are," he smiled. "Your GrowthLink initiative has been making waves. Would you have time for coffee? I'd love to discuss potential synergies with some of Bennett Global's community outreach programs." Before Olivia could respond, William appeared at her side. "Nathan, I see you've met my secret weapon." "Indeed." Nathan's eyes hadn't left Olivia's face, though I suspect she won't be a secret much longer. The three of them moved to the hotel's waterfront cafe, where their coffee meeting stretched into a 2-hour discussion. Nathan proved to be everything his reputation suggested: brilliant, thoughtful, and genuinely committed to ethical business practices. He listened intently as Olivia expanded on her vision for GrowthLink, offering insights that made her ideas even stronger. "The real challenge," Nathan mused, "is scaling this model without losing the community focus that makes it work." Olivia's eyes lit up. "Actually, I've been working on that." She pulled out her tablet, quickly navigating to a preliminary proposal. "If we create regional hubs, each with its own unique community identity but connected through a shared resource network." She trailed off, noticing Nathan's smile. "What?" "Nothing." He shook his head. "It's just refreshing to meet someone as passionate about this as I am. Most people see community investment as a PR exercise." "Those people are missing the point," Olivia said firmly, "and losing out on incredible opportunities." William, who had been quietly observing their interaction, checked his watch. "Well, I should head back to the office. Olivia, why don't you continue this discussion with Nathan? I'm sure Bennett Global could benefit from your insights." As William left, Olivia noticed the sunset painting the harbor in shades of gold and pink. Had they really talked for so long? "Dinner?" Nathan suggested. "There's an excellent Italian place around the corner. We could discuss that regional hub concept in more detail." Olivia hesitated for a moment, then smiled. "I'd like that." Over pasta and wine, their conversation flowed from business to books, from travel to childhood dreams. Nathan spoke about losing his parents young and building his company from scratch, determined to create something meaningful. Olivia found herself sharing things she rarely discussed: her struggles growing up, her determination to prove herself, even the painful experience at Sterling and Reed. "Their loss," Nathan said simply when she finished, "though I suspect Karma has plans for Mr. Collins." Later, as they walked along the harbor, Nathan turned to her. "I have a proposition for you, Ms. Parker." "Another business proposal?" she asked, noting the sudden formality. "No," he smiled. "I'd like to take you to dinner again, tomorrow night. No business talk allowed." Olivia felt warmth spread through her chest. "I'd like that too." As she rode home that night, Olivia's mind was spinning. The successful presentation, the expansion possibilities for GrowthLink, and Nathan Bennett. It all felt surreal. Her phone buzzed with a text from Christina. "Saw you leaving with Nathan Bennett. Details tomorrow or I'll die." Olivia laughed, but her smile faded slightly as she noticed an email notification. Another message from Ryan, this one congratulating her on her little presentation. She archived it without reading further. His attempts to rattle her were becoming increasingly transparent and increasingly ineffective. In her apartment, Olivia kicked off her heels and walked to the window. The city sparkled below, full of possibility. Tomorrow would bring a dinner date with one of Boston's most eligible bachelors. But more importantly, it would bring another day of building something meaningful, of proving that success didn't require sacrificing your soul. She touched her reflection in the window, hardly recognizing the confident woman she'd become. "Just the beginning," she whispered, and for the first time, she truly believed it. Spring had painted Boston Common in vibrant colors, but Olivia hardly noticed as she hurried through the park, phone pressed to her ear. "Yes, Mr. Torres, I understand your concerns about the expansion timeline. What if we scheduled a meeting for—" "Hold on." She paused, checking her calendar app. "Tomorrow at 2 p.m., I can walk you through the revised projections myself." Ending the call, she quickened her pace toward the Four Seasons. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind of success and change. GrowthLink had expanded to 3 more cities, and her relationship with Nathan had blossomed into something she'd never expected to find. The maitre d' recognized her immediately. "Miss Parker, Mr. Bennett is waiting in your usual corner." Nathan stood as she approached, his smile warming his normally serious features. "There's my brilliant workaholic." He kissed her cheek as she sat down. "Though you're later than usual today." "Sorry," Olivia sighed, settling into her chair. "The Chicago expansion is proving more complicated than expected. Some of the local business associations are worried about losing their autonomy." "Ah, politics," Nathan nodded. "The eternal challenge of scaling anything worthwhile." He studied her face for a moment. "You'll figure it out. You always do." Their usual waiter appeared with a bottle of wine, her favorite red that Nathan always ordered in advance. As he poured, Olivia noticed the slight tremor in Nathan's normally steady hands. "Everything okay?" she asked once they were alone. "Better than okay." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "I've been thinking about something William said to me last week, about how some opportunities are too precious to risk losing." Olivia's heart began to race as Nathan reached into his jacket pocket. "These past months with you have shown me what's truly possible when brilliance meets compassion. You've changed how I see everything, business, success, life itself." He opened a small velvet box, revealing a stunning emerald ring. "Olivia Parker, would you marry me?" The world seemed to stop. Olivia stared at the ring, then at Nathan's face, seeing all the love and hope there. In that moment, flashes of their time together played through her mind, late-night strategy sessions that turned into deep conversations about their dreams, weekends spent visiting GrowthLink businesses together, the way he always believed in her vision without trying to control it. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes." As Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger, applause erupted around them. Olivia looked up to see William, Christina, and the rest of the Blackwood team emerging from nearby tables. "You planned this?" she asked Nathan, laughing through happy tears. "They insisted on being here," he grinned. "Something about having invested too much in our relationship to miss the big moment." Christina rushed over, hugging Olivia tightly. "Finally, do you know how hard it's been keeping this secret?" William approached more sedately, but his eyes were bright. "I believe this calls for champagne," he signaled the waiter, then turned to Olivia. "Though I hope you know this means I'm losing my best employee to Bennett Global." "Actually," Nathan interjected, "Olivia will be retaining her role at Blackwood Ventures if she wants to. We've discussed it, and maintaining GrowthLink's independence is crucial for its continued success." Olivia squeezed his hand, grateful for his understanding. They'd talked about this, how important it was to her to maintain her own professional identity, to succeed on her own terms. As their friends celebrated around them, Olivia's phone buzzed with a news alert. The headline made her breath catch. "Sterling and Reed faces federal investigation over financial discrepancies." Nathan noticed her expression. "Everything all right?" She showed him the article. His eyes narrowed as he read. Ryan Collins is mentioned prominently. Seems your former colleague has been playing fast and loose with the numbers. Karma, really? It does have plans, Olivia mused, thinking of Nathan's words from months ago. Later that evening, as they walked along the Charles River, Nathan pulled Olivia close. Happy? More than I ever thought possible. She looked up at him. Though I have to admit, I'm a little nervous about the society pages tomorrow. Boston's most eligible bachelor off the market. They're going to want to know everything about me. Let them talk, Nathan said firmly. You've more than proven yourself, and anyone who thinks otherwise hasn't been paying attention. Olivia touched the emerald ring, still getting used to its weight. You know, a year ago, I was at my lowest point, unemployed, humiliated, wondering if I'd ever recover. And now, as she smiled, thinking of all the lives GrowthLink had changed, of the respect she'd earned, of the love she'd found. Now I know that was just the beginning of my real story. Walking home that night, past the gleaming towers of the financial district, Olivia felt a profound sense of peace. The ghosts of her past, the humiliation, the self-doubt, Ryan's cruel smirk had lost their power. She was no longer that nervous young woman clutching her portfolio like a shield. She was Olivia Parker, soon to be Olivia Bennett, and she was just getting started. The headline in the Wall Street Journal seemed to mock Ryan Collins as he sat in his corner office at Sterling and Reed. Market leader Bennett Global announces merger with innovative Blackwood Ventures. The accompanying photo showed Nathan Bennett and William Blackwood shaking hands, but Ryan's eyes were drawn to the woman standing between them, Olivia Parker, identified as Chief Strategy Officer of GrowthLink and Bennett's fiancée. He crumpled the newspaper, his hand shaking. Another notification popped up on his computer. The internal audit team requested more documentation for his recent reports. The fifth such request this month. Across town, in Bennett Global's sunlit conference room, Olivia was leading a strategy meeting about the merger. By combining Bennett Global's resources with Blackwood's community-focused approach, we can scale GrowthLink nationally while maintaining its core values. Nathan watched her with pride as she commanded the room. The diamond and emerald ring caught the light as she gestured toward projection screens showing growth metrics. She'd insisted on earning this position, refusing any shortcuts her engagement might have offered. The numbers are compelling, one of the Bennett Global board members admitted, but the real proof is in the testimonials from your existing network members. The loyalty you've built is remarkable. After the meeting, Nathan caught up with Olivia in the hallway. Dinner at home tonight? I convinced that Italian chef you love to do a private cooking class for us. Perfect, she kissed him quickly, but I have to run. Meeting with the wedding planner in an hour, then the Chicago team needs an update on their expansion. Don't forget to breathe occasionally, he teased. Even unstoppable forces need rest. She was halfway to the elevator when William appeared. Olivia, do you have a moment? In his office, William closed the door, his expression serious. Have you seen the latest about Sterling and Reed? Just headlines, she replied. Something about irregularities in their reports? It's worse than that. He handed her a file. They're hemorrhaging clients. The SEC investigation is expanding. They need a bailout and fast. Olivia scanned the documents, her analyst's mind quickly grasping the severity. These discrepancies, they all trace back to Ryan's department. Indeed, William's eyes held a knowing look. Several investment firms are circling, waiting for the stock to bottom out before making hostile takeover bids. But I had a different thought. She looked up, already sensing where this was going. GrowthLink's success has given us significant capital for expansion, William continued. Sterling and Reed's client list and market position, properly restructured, could accelerate our national rollout by years. Olivia sat back, her mind racing. You want me to acquire Sterling and Reed? I want you to consider it, he smiled, purely as a business decision, of course. That evening, in the spacious kitchen of Nathan's Beacon Hill townhouse, Olivia watched their private chef demonstrate proper risotto technique. But her mind kept drifting to the Sterling and Reed file. "You're a million miles away," Nathan observed, handing her a glass of wine. William suggested something interesting today. She told him about the potential acquisition. Nathan considered it carefully. Financially, it makes sense. Sterling and Reed's value is artificially low right now, but their client relationships are still solid under proper management. He paused, studying her face. "But that's not what you're really thinking about, is it?" "No," she admitted. "I keep thinking about that day, walking out with my box of belongings, seeing Ryan's smirk through the window, about all the other people he might have hurt the same way. And now I could walk back in as the owner." She shook her head. "It feels too much like revenge." Nathan turned off the stove, asking the chef to give them a moment. "Listen to me," he said, taking her hands. "Making a smart business decision isn't revenge. Saving jobs, protecting clients, creating something better from the ashes of failure, that's leadership." Later that night, unable to sleep, Olivia stood at the window of their bedroom, looking out over the city. Her phone buzzed. A text from Christina. "Just saw the Sterling and Reed numbers. Tell me you're considering it. This isn't just business, it's poetry." As if on cue, another notification appeared, a LinkedIn message from Ryan Collins. "Heard rumors about your interest. In S&R? Still the same charity case trying to play in the big leagues?" Olivia screened the message but didn't delete it. Instead, she opened her laptop and began to work. By dawn, she had a complete acquisition proposal drafted, including a restructuring plan that would save most of the jobs while excising the toxic elements that had corrupted the firm. At breakfast, she showed it to Nathan. He read it carefully, then looked up with a mix of admiration and concern. "This is brilliant. But are you sure you want to take this on? The wedding's in 3 months. Chicago's launching, the mergers still being finalized." "I'm sure," she said firmly. "Not for revenge, for justice, for every person who was ever made to feel small by people like Ryan. And," she smiled, "because it's a damn good business decision." She took out her phone and texted William, "Let's do it, but on my terms." His reply came instantly. "Never expected anything less. Meeting at 9. Looking out at the rising sun painting the Boston skyline, Olivia felt a familiar determination settling into her bones. The scared young woman who'd walked out of Sterling and Reed was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, wiser, and ready to turn the tables, not with cruelty, but with the same grace and strategic brilliance that had brought her this far. "Time to go home," she whispered to her reflection. But this time, she'd be walking through the front door as the owner. The Sterling and Reed boardroom hadn't changed. The same floor-to-ceiling windows still offered their imperial view of Boston. The same mahogany table still gleamed under soft, recessed lighting. But everything else was different, most notably the power dynamics at play. Olivia sat at the head of the table, Nathan and William flanking her, as she laid out the terms of the acquisition to Sterling and Reed's board. Her voice was steady, professional, but there was steel beneath the silk. "Given the current SEC investigation and the firm's market position, our offer is more than generous." She gestured to the documents before them. "We'll retain 60% of the workforce, protect client investments, and maintain the Sterling and Reed name as a subsidiary of GrowthLink Enterprises." Maxwell Sterling, now looking far older than Olivia remembered, cleared his throat. "And the current management team?" Will be evaluated on a case-by-case basis," Olivia replied smoothly, her eyes flickering briefly to Ryan, who sat rigid in his chair near the middle of the table. Though, given the nature of the SEC's findings, some immediate changes will be necessary. Ryan's face had gone from pale to flushed. This is absurd. You can't seriously be considering selling to her? Mr. Collins, Nathan's voice carried a quiet warning. Perhaps you should review the audit findings before questioning Ms. Parker's qualifications. The next hour passed in a blur of legal terms and signatures. By lunch, it was official. Sterling and Reed, the firm that had once cast her out, was now under Olivia's control. As the board members filed out, Ryan remained behind, his former swagger replaced by barely contained panic. You planned this, didn't you? All of it? Olivia gathered her papers calmly. Planned for you to falsify reports. For the SEC to investigate. For Sterling and Reed to need a lifeline. She looked up at him, her gaze level. You give me too much credit, Ryan. You managed that all on your own. I'll fight this, he snarled, but his voice wavered. You can't just walk in here and... Actually, I can. Olivia stood, her presence somehow filling the room despite her modest height. But don't worry. Unlike you, I believe in giving people a chance to prove their worth. Nathan and William, who had been watching the exchange carefully, stepped closer, but Olivia raised a hand slightly. She had this under control. Report to HR tomorrow morning, she continued. You'll be reassigned to an entry-level position in our community outreach division. Same one you mocked me for caring about, actually. A small smile played at her lips. Consider it an opportunity for personal growth. You expect me to start over, at the bottom? Ryan's face contorted. I won't do it. I'll take my clients. Elsewhere. Your clients? William interjected mildly. The ones currently under SEC investigation for fraudulent reporting. I'm sure they'll be delighted to follow you. Ryan's bluster deflated visibly. You're enjoying this, aren't you? He asked Olivia bitterly. No, Ryan. That's the difference between us. She gathered her belongings, preparing to leave. This isn't about enjoyment. It's about responsibility, something you never understood. In the elevator down to the lobby, Nathan squeezed her hand. You were magnificent up there. Indeed, William agreed. Though I suspect our real work is just beginning. Transforming a company's culture isn't easy. Good thing I learned from the best. Olivia smiled at him. Speaking of which, I want to implement GrowthLink's mentorship program here immediately. These people need to see a different way of doing business. As they crossed the lobby, Olivia caught her reflection in the marble walls. So different. From that last time she'd walked this path, the scared young woman with the box of belongings was gone. In her place stood someone who had learned that true power came not from tearing others down, but from lifting them up. Her phone buzzed with a text from Christina. Done deal? Champagne tonight? Rain check, Olivia replied. Too much work to do. Another message came through, this one from the wedding planner about final flower arrangements. Olivia smiled, thinking how differently everything had turned out from what she'd imagined that dark day a year ago. Back in her new office, the same one that had once belonged to Maxwell Sterling, Olivia began drafting a company-wide memo. The words flowed easily. To all Sterling and Reed employees, today marks not an ending but a new beginning. Change can be frightening, but it also brings opportunity. In the coming weeks, each of you will have the chance to be part of something bigger than quarterly profits or market share. You'll have the chance to prove that success and ethics aren't mutually exclusive. Some of you know my history with this firm. You may be wondering if this acquisition is about revenge. It's not. It's about redemption, not just mine, but this company's. Together, we can build something that matters. Your new journey starts tomorrow. I look forward to showing you what's possible when we lead with integrity. Olivia Parker, CEO, GrowthLink Enterprises. As she hit send, Olivia heard the familiar ding of the elevator, followed by the sound of Ryan's voice arguing with HR about his new position. She smiled slightly, turned to her computer and began to work. She had a company to transform, and this was just the beginning. 2 weeks after the acquisition, Olivia stood before a room of nervous Sterling and Reed employees presenting GrowthLink's community outreach program. The tension was palpable. These were people who had spent their careers chasing profit margins, not social impact. "I know this seems like a radical departure," she acknowledged, clicking to a slide showing profit projections. "But look at these numbers from our pilot programs. When we invest in communities, they invest back in us. It's not just good ethics, it's good business." In the back row, Ryan sat slumped in his chair, his once immaculate suit looking slightly rumpled. His new position as a junior community liaison had him working directly with small business owners, the very people he'd once dismissed as beneath his notice. After the presentation, Olivia noticed a young analyst, Jessica Chen, lingering behind. "Ms. Parker, I have some ideas about expanding the program to include educational initiatives for underprivileged students interested in finance." "Come to my office," Olivia smiled. "I'd love to hear them." As they walked, they passed Ryan's new cubicle. He was on the phone, his face red with frustration. "No, Mrs. Rodriguez, I understand you're worried about the loan terms." "Yes, I can." "Explain them again." In Olivia's office, Jessica spread out her proposal. "I was thinking if we partner with local schools—" A knock interrupted them. Lauren Bedford, now heading Sterling and Reed's transition team, entered with a concerned expression. "We have a situation. Ryan Collins just had a meltdown in the break room. Apparently one of his assigned clients called him condescending and unhelpful." Olivia sighed. "Send him in." To Jessica, she added, "Rain check, this looks promising." Minutes later, Ryan stormed into the office, his former swagger replaced by raw anger. "Is this what you wanted? To humiliate me? Make me deal with people who can't even understand basic financial concepts?" "Sit down, Ryan." Olivia's voice was firm, but not unkind. "Tell me about Mrs. Rodriguez." "What?" "Your client, the one you were just speaking with. Tell me about her business," Ryan scoffed. "Some small family restaurant. They want to expand, but can't grasp the basic—" "3 generations of authentic Mexican cuisine," Olivia interrupted, "built from scratch by her grandmother who came here with nothing. Current revenue suggests they could double their size within 2 years with proper support." She fixed him with a steady gaze. "This is why you're failing, Ryan. You see numbers on a page. I see people, dreams, potential." "So fire me," he spat. "That's what you really want, isn't it?" "No, Ryan. What I want is for you to learn what I had to learn. That true success isn't about stepping on others to rise. It's about lifting people up with you." She pulled up Mrs. Rodriguez's file on her computer. "Now let's look at how we can actually help her business grow." For the next hour, Olivia walked Ryan through a different approach to client relations. Despite his initial resistance, she could see moments where something clicked. Brief glimpses of understanding breaking through his hardened shell. Later that afternoon, Olivia met with Nathan in their favorite cafe. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm being too idealistic," she admitted. "Changing a corporate culture this ingrained—" "Rome wasn't built in a day," he reminded her, then grinned. "Though knowing you, you would have found a way to speed up the process." Her phone buzzed, a message from Jessica with a more detailed version of her education initiative. Olivia showed it to Nathan. "Look at this. 2 weeks ago, these people wouldn't have dared to suggest anything beyond profit maximization. Now they're thinking about real impact." "They just needed permission to care," Nathan observed, "and a leader who shows them how." As they left the cafe, they passed a small restaurant with a "coming soon" sign. Through the window, Olivia spotted Ryan sitting with Mrs. Rodriguez and her family, actually listening as they showed him their plans for the space. "Well, well," Nathan murmured. "Maybe there's hope for everyone." Back at the office, Olivia found William waiting in her office. "The board's quarterly review is coming up," he reminded her. "They'll want to see how the integration is progressing." "I'll have something to show them," Olivia promised. She glanced at the stack of proposals on her desk, not just Jessica's, but several others from formerly cynical Sterling and Reed employees who were starting to see a new way forward. That evening, as she prepared to leave, Ryan appeared in her doorway. He looked uncomfortable, but determined. "Mrs. Rodriguez's expansion plan. I've been running the numbers. If we structure it differently, maybe with a graduated interest rate." He hesitated. "Would you be willing to look it over?" Olivia gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Show me what you've got." As they worked, Olivia caught their reflection in the window. The woman who had once been cast out now helping her former tormentor find a better path. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about transformation, about proving that change was possible for anyone willing to learn. Her phone lit up with a text from Christina. "Dress fitting tomorrow, no cancelling this time, boss lady." Olivia smiled, thinking about how far she'd come from that dark day a year ago. She had built something meaningful, found love, and now was helping others find their own path to redemption. Even Ryan Collins was showing signs of change. "Back to basics," she murmured. "What?" Ryan looked up from his notes. "Nothing," she replied, "just remembering where it all started. Now tell me more about how we can help Mrs. Rodriguez's dream grow." The Boston Public Garden was ablaze with spring colors as Olivia walked its winding paths early one morning. In 3 days, these same paths would be lined with chairs for her wedding to Nathan. But today her mind was on a different kind of transformation. Her phone buzzed with an unexpected message from Ryan. "Mrs. Rodriguez's expansion opening tonight. Would mean a lot if you could stop by." 6 weeks had passed since his breakdown in her office, and something had shifted in him. It wasn't dramatic. Ryan Collins wasn't about to become a saint, but there was a gradual softening, a growing understanding that had surprised them both. "I'll be there," she typed back. At the office, she found Jessica Chen waiting with a stack of reports. "The education initiative is taking off," the young analyst beamed. "We've already got 15 schools signed up for the financial literacy program, and 3 of our biggest clients have volunteered to be mentors." Olivia scanned the data, pride swelling in her chest. The Sterling and Reed team was not just adapting to the new culture, they were beginning to drive it forward themselves. "Send this to the board," she decided. "They need to see what real growth looks like." Speaking of growth, Jessica hesitated, then plunged forward. Ryan's team actually had some good suggestions for expanding the mentor network. "He's been different lately." The afternoon whirled by in a blur of wedding details and business decisions. Christina arrived with lunch and final seating arrangement questions, but their discussion was interrupted by an urgent call from Lauren. "You need to see this," Lauren announced, hurrying into the office with her tablet. She pulled up a video that was rapidly gaining traction on social media. It showed Ryan at a local business convention, passionately describing GrowthLink's community. "Impact model, the old way of doing business, it's obsolete," Ryan was saying in the video. "I know because I was that person, focused on numbers, dismissive of anything that didn't serve immediate profit. But look at these results." He gestured to his presentation. "When we invest in communities, when we see people as more than just data points, we create sustainable growth that lifts everyone." Olivia watched in amazement as Ryan, the man who had once mocked her for caring about community impact, effectively sold her vision to a room full of skeptical executives. "Did you put him up to this?" Christina asked. No, Olivia shook her head. This is all him. That evening, Olivia and Nathan made their way to the grand opening of Rodriguez Family Kitchen's second location. The small restaurant was packed, filled with local business owners, GrowthLink employees, and Sterling and Reed staff who had worked on similar community projects. Mrs. Rodriguez spotted them immediately, rushing over to embrace Olivia. "Mi Angel and Ryan, he has been such a help, truly understanding our vision." Ryan approached, looking almost shy, an expression Olivia had never seen on him before. "Thanks for coming," he said quietly. "Both of you." As Mrs. Rodriguez's family served their signature dishes, Ryan pulled Olivia aside. "I owe you an apology," he began, "not just for what happened at Sterling and Reed back then, but for who I was. I didn't understand." "But you do now," Olivia finished for him. "Getting there," he admitted. "Working with these families, seeing what they build with just a little support, it's changed how I see everything." Nathan joined them, champagne glasses in hand. "To new beginnings and old endings," Ryan added, then looked embarrassed. "Sorry, that sounded better in my head." Olivia laughed, a genuine, warm sound. That seemed to surprise Ryan as much as it did her. "You're going soft, Collins. Don't spread it around." He grinned, then grew serious. "I heard about the board's review tomorrow. If you need any data on the community impact projects—" "Already handled," she assured him. "But I might have you present at the next one." Later that night, as Olivia and Nathan walked through the public garden, checking last-minute wedding details, she felt a profound sense of completion. "Penny, for your thoughts?" Nathan asked, pulling her close against the spring chill. "I was just thinking about forgiveness," she replied. "Not the easy kind that comes with apologies, but the hard kind that comes with change. Like Ryan, like all of us." She stopped, looking at the path where she would soon walk as a bride. "A year ago, I thought success meant proving people wrong. Now I know it's about proving something to yourself." Her phone lit up with a message. "From William. Board numbers are in. Sterling and Reed's community investment portfolio showing 40% higher returns than traditional accounts." "You did it." Nathan read the message over her shoulder and smiled. "Proving something to everyone, I'd say." As they continued their walk, Olivia spotted a young woman sitting on a bench, poring over business textbooks. She thought of herself, not so long ago, of all the other dreamers out there who just needed someone to believe in them. "You know," she said to Nathan, "I'm thinking of expanding the education initiative. Maybe a scholarship program?" He kissed her temple. "Save. Some plans for after the honeymoon?" "Never," she grinned. "You knew what you were signing up for." The garden's lights twinkled around them, and somewhere nearby, a street musician played a soft melody. In 3 days, she would walk these paths in white, promising forever to the man beside her. But her other promises, to create change, to lift others up, to transform the world of business into something more human, those were already in full bloom. Her phone buzzed one last time. A photo from Ryan of Mrs. Rodriguez's packed restaurant with the caption, "Thank you for the second chance." Olivia smiled, tucking the phone away. Some flowers just needed time and the right conditions to bloom. The morning of her wedding dawned clear and bright, sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Four Seasons bridal suite. Olivia stood at the window, watching Boston come alive below. From this height, she could see both the Sterling and Reed building and the Blackwood Ventures offices, the bookends of her journey. "Stop working, even in your head," Christina scolded, appearing with a mimosa. "Today is about celebration, not strategy." But it wasn't work occupying Olivia's thoughts. It was the path that had led her here, every setback, every triumph, every moment of doubt and determination that had shaped her into the woman who would walk down the aisle today. The suite quickly filled with activity. Her hair and makeup team arrived, followed by the photographer. Christina orchestrated everything with military precision, while Lauren and Jessica helped arrange Olivia's grandmother's pearls, her something old, and the sapphire bracelet from Nathan that would be her something blue. "The garden looks magical," Lauren reported, showing pictures on her phone. The flowers bloomed perfectly on schedule. A knock at the door revealed a surprise visitor, Mrs. Rodriguez, carrying a box of fresh-baked pastries. "For the bride," she insisted, hugging Olivia tightly. "A little something sweet for the woman who helped make our dreams come true." As the morning progressed, more unexpected gifts arrived. A vintage bottle of champagne from William, with a note reading, "For the daughter I never had." A handcrafted wooden jewelry box from one of Growthlink's artisan clients. A collective card from the Sterling and Reed staff, filled with messages of gratitude and admiration. Then came the envelope that made her pause. Ryan's handwriting. Inside was a simple note. "Thank you for showing me a better way. Your journey inspired more change than you know." "Ready for the dress?" Christina asked, bringing Olivia back to the moment. The gown was everything she'd dreamed. Elegant, but understated, much like the empire she'd built. As Christina and Lauren helped her into it, Olivia caught glimpses of herself in the mirror. The scared young woman who'd fled Sterling and Reed in tears was gone. In her place stood someone who had learned that true power came from lifting others up, not tearing them down. "Nathan's going to lose it when he sees you," Christina grinned, adjusting the veil. A text from William. "In position at the garden entrance. Ready when you are, my dear." The drive to the public garden was a blur of emotion. The spring air was perfect, carrying the scent of blooming flowers and new beginnings. As the car pulled up, Olivia saw the gathered crowd, a beautiful mix of corporate executives and community business owners, all brought together by her vision of what business could be. William waited at the garden entrance, looking dapper in his tuxedo. "Shall we?" He offered his arm. The music began, not the traditional wedding march, but a string quartet's version of "A Million Dreams," the song that had kept her going during her darkest days. As they began their walk, Olivia's eyes found Nathan at the end of the path, his face lit up with a joy that made her heart skip. She noticed Ryan sitting quietly toward the back, reformed enough to be invited but humble, enough to keep a low profile. He gave her a small nod of genuine respect, perhaps the most meaningful gesture he'd ever made toward her. The ceremony itself was a beautiful blur of promises and possibilities. Nathan's vows spoke of admiration for her strength and vision, of partnership in all things, of building a future where success meant more than just profit margins. Olivia's vows wove together their personal love story with their shared dream of transforming the business world into something more humane and hopeful. At the reception, William's toast brought tears to many eyes. "I met Olivia Parker on what she thought was her worst day," he recalled. "But I saw then what you all see now, a force of nature disguised as a young woman. She didn't just build a business empire, she built a new way of thinking about success." Later, as she danced with Nathan under the twinkling garden lights, Olivia felt a profound sense of rightness. "Happy?" he murmured in her ear. "Beyond," she smiled. "Though I was thinking about the Chicago expansion." "Absolutely not," he laughed, spinning her. "No business talk until after the honeymoon. CEO's orders." "I outrank you now, remember?" she teased. "The merger made me group CEO." "Even better. Reason to take a real break. You've earned it." As the evening wound down, Olivia found a quiet moment alone in the garden. The path where she'd once walked with her box of belongings, feeling lost and broken, now glowed with hundreds of tiny lights. She touched one of the blooming flowers, thinking of all the other dreamers out there, waiting for their chance. Her phone lit up with a message from Jessica. "Emergency at Sterling and Reed." Olivia smiled, typing back, "Not tonight. Tonight we celebrate. Tomorrow we change the world." Nathan appeared at her side, offering his hand. "One last dance, Mrs. Bennett." She took his hand, letting him pull her close. Above them, stars twinkled in the spring sky, promising infinite possibilities. She had found her happy ending, but more importantly, she had created a new beginning, for herself, for her companies, and for all those who would follow in her footsteps. "Lead the way, Mr. Bennett," she smiled. "We've got a lifetime of dances ahead." Returning to Boston after 3 weeks in the Maldives felt like stepping into a new world. The morning sun painted the city skyline in shades of possibility as Olivia's car wound through the streets towards Sterling and Reed. Her wedding ring caught the light, still new enough to make her smile every time she noticed it. "Welcome back, Mrs. Bennett," the security guard beamed as she entered the building. The name still felt fresh on her ears, a reminder of how much had changed. She found her office transformed, not by renovation, but by what waited on her desk. Alongside the usual financial reports and merger documents sat dozens of letters from community businesses, each sharing stories of growth and success. Lauren had arranged them carefully, with a note on top. "Thought you'd want to see what you started. The prodigal CEO returns." William appeared in her doorway, eyes twinkling. "Though I should warn you, some interesting developments happened while you were away." Before he could elaborate, Ryan burst in, looking more animated than she did ever seen him. "Oh good, you're back. You need to see this." He spread several documents across her desk. "Remember Mrs. Rodriguez's expansion model? We've replicated it across 12 other family-owned restaurants. The success rate is incredible." Olivia raised an eyebrow at William, who smiled knowingly. "Ryan's been enthusiastic about the community development program. He's actually developed quite a following among the local business owners." "They trust him," Ryan explained, then caught himself looking almost embarrassed by his excitement. "I mean, the numbers speak for themselves." "Show me," Olivia said, hiding her smile. As Ryan walked her through the data, Olivia noticed subtle changes in him. His designer suit was the same, but his body language had softened. He spoke about the business owners with genuine respect, even affection. The arrogant executive who had once tormented her had been replaced by someone who had found genuine purpose. "There's more," William interjected once Ryan finished. "The Harvard Business Review wants to do a feature on GrowthLink's community integration model. They're calling it the future of ethical business expansion." Olivia's phone buzzed. "Nathan, lunch? Have something exciting to share." They met at their favorite cafe where Nathan could barely contain his news. "Remember that sustainable energy initiative we discussed? The board just green-lit it. Full funding, immediate implementation." "Nathan, that's wonderful." The project had been his passion for months. "There's more," he continued. "They want to integrate it with GrowthLink's community development program. Solar panels for small businesses, renewable energy education initiatives." He grinned. "Sound familiar?" Olivia laughed. "Like something I might have mentioned once or twice on our honeymoon. Try every day." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "We make a good team, Mrs. Bennett." Back at the office, Olivia found Jessica waiting with more surprises. The education initiative had exploded, with major universities now wanting to partner on business development programs for underserved communities. "And there's this," Jessica added hesitantly, pulling up a social media post that had gone viral. It was a before and after photo series. Sterling and Reed's previous corporate culture contrasted with their current community-integrated model. The The post had thousands of shares, with comments praising the transformation and asking how other companies could follow suit. "You've started a movement," Jessica said softly. "We all feel it. Even the old guard is coming around." Adut. As if on cue, Olivia's phone lit up with a message from one of Sterling and Reed's most traditional board members. "You were right. We were wrong. Thank you for showing us a better way." That evening, as Olivia and Nathan hosted a dinner party at their Beacon Hill home, she looked around at the gathered faces. William, his eyes bright with pride. Christina, already planning their next expansion. Ryan, earnestly discussing small business development with Lauren. All these lives intertwined, all transformed in their own ways. "Speech," someone called. Out as dessert was served, Olivia stood, glass in hand. "A year ago, I thought success meant proving people wrong. But life has taught me that true success is about proving something to yourself and then sharing that truth with others." She caught Ryan's eye, seeing understanding there. We all have the capacity to change, to grow, to become better versions of ourselves. But more importantly, we have the capacity to help others do the same. Nathan squeezed her hand as she continued. "Someone once told me that business was about numbers, not people. They were wrong. It's always been about people, their dreams, their potential, their ability to rise above their circumstances." The room had gone quiet, hanging on her words. "So here's to new beginnings, second chances, and the endless possibilities that come when we choose to lift each other up instead of tearing each other down." Later, after the guests had gone, Olivia stood at their bedroom window, looking out over the city she'd helped transform. Nathan wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Still planning world domination." "Just the next phase," she smiled. "There's so much more to do." "Tomorrow," he kissed her temple. "Tonight, just be proud of how far you've come." Her phone lit up one last time. A message from Mrs. Rodriguez with a photo of her packed restaurant. "Look what you helped us build, mi angel." Olivia smiled, turning in Nathan's arms. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to create change. But tonight was for celebrating how a moment of despair had transformed into a lifetime of purpose. "You know," she mused, "sometimes the worst moments in our lives turn out to be the best things that could have happened to us." Nathan pulled her closer. "And sometimes they lead us exactly where we're meant to be." 1 year to the day after her wedding, Olivia stood in the familiar lobby of Sterling and Reed, watching a young woman clutch her portfolio with nervous determination. The scene sparked a powerful sense of déjà vu, except this time Olivia wasn't the one feeling lost and overwhelmed. "Ms. Torres?" Olivia approached the young woman. "I'm Olivia Bennett. Would you like to grab coffee before your interview?" Relief flooded the candidate's face. Yes, thank you, Mrs. Bennett. I didn't expect the CEO to—" "Some meetings are worth making time for," Olivia smiled, leading her to the elevator. At the same coffee shop where she'd once met William, Olivia studied the young woman before her. Andrea Torres had the same fire in her eyes that Olivia remembered seeing in her own reflection years ago. That mixture of ambition and uncertainty, of determination and fear. "Your application was impressive," Olivia began. "But tell me what's not in the resume. Why are you really here?" Andrea hesitated, then squared her shoulders. "Because I want to change things. I grew up watching my parents struggle with their small business, not because they lacked talent or drive, but because they didn't have access to the right resources or opportunities. When I read about GrowthLink's community development program," she paused. "Everyone says business is about profit. I think it can be about more." Olivia felt William's presence somehow, heard his words from that fateful day. "What would you do if failure wasn't an option?" "You start Monday," Olivia said simply. But my interview? This was it. Olivia smiled. Sometimes you just know when someone gets it. Back at the office, Olivia found Ryan waiting with the quarterly impact reports. The numbers were staggering. GrowthLink's model had been adopted by firms across the country, creating a ripple effect of community-focused development. We're changing the game, Ryan said proudly, then caught himself. Sorry, force of habit. You're changing the game. I'm just glad to be part of it. You've earned your place here, Ryan. The small business owners trust you because you've shown them genuine respect and commitment. He nodded, a flash of old pain crossing his face. I think about how I used to be, how I treated you. I don't know if I've ever properly apologized. You have, Olivia assured him. Not with words, but with actions. That means more. The afternoon brought a series of meetings about GrowthLink's latest initiative, a nationwide educational program bringing financial literacy and business development resources to underserved communities. Nathan joined remotely from Chicago, where he was overseeing their green energy integration project. Miss Yu, he messaged privately during the video call. Dinner tonight? Big news to share. That evening, at their favorite restaurant overlooking the harbor, Nathan could barely contain his excitement. The green energy project exceeded all projections, but more importantly, he took her hand. We're going to be parents. Olivia's heart soared as the news sank in. A new chapter, a new adventure, a new chance to shape the future. Later that night, unable to sleep, Olivia stood in their home office, looking at the framed front page of the Wall Street Journal from the day of the Sterling and Reed acquisition. Next to it hung a collection of photos. Her wedding day, the opening of Mrs. Rodriguez's second restaurant, the launch of their Chicago office, countless moments of triumph and transformation. Her phone buzzed with a message from William. Saw the education initiative numbers. You've surpassed the teacher, my dear. Dinner this week, your treat, CEO. Another message popped up, this one from Andrea Torres. Thank you for today, for seeing something in me. I won't let you down. Olivia touched her still flat stomach, thinking of the child who would grow up in a world she had helped reshape. A world where business could be a force for good, where success was measured not just in dollars, but in lives improved. The next morning, she arrived early at the office, pausing in the lobby where her journey had both ended and begun. The security guard smiled knowingly. He'd been there that day, had seen her leave in tears and return in triumph. In her office, she found a small package from Nathan. Inside was a simple silver compass with an inscription, "For the woman who always finds her true north." As the sun rose over Boston, painting the sky in shades of promise, Olivia Bennett looked out at the city she'd helped transform. She thought of all the Andrea Torreses out there, all the dreamers and strivers who just needed someone to believe in them. She thought of her unborn child and the world of possibility they would inherit. Her computer chimed with an email from a national business magazine requesting an interview about the GrowthLink revolution. The subject line made her smile. Revolution wasn't the right word. Evolution was more like it, the natural progression from a world of cutthroat competition to one of collaborative growth. Ready for the board meeting? Ryan appeared in her doorway, files in hand. Actually, Olivia smiled, I think it's time for you to lead this one. Show them what you've learned about community-integrated development. His eyes widened. Are you sure? Success isn't just about your own journey, she said. It's about helping others find their way too. As Ryan left to prepare, Olivia opened her laptop to write a quick email to Andrea Torres, sharing some first-day advice. Then she paused, fingers hovering over the keys, and instead typed, "Let's have coffee again. There's something I want to tell you about a day much like this one, not so long ago, when everything seemed to be ending, only to discover it was just the beginning. She hit send and stood, ready to face another day of building something meaningful. The scared young woman with the cardboard box was long gone, but her legacy lived on in every life touched, every dream supported, every second chance given. This was her true revenge, not destroying those who had hurt her, but creating something so beautiful and powerful that it transformed them too. This was her victory, not in proving others wrong, but in proving that there was a better way. This was her story, not just of personal triumph, but of showing others that they too could rise, could change, could become something more than they ever imagined. And it was still just beginning. The end. That was a beautiful story, wasn't it? I hope you enjoyed it. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your collaboration is very important to me.